So who here is an early riser, like really early? And how is early?
What do you consider early?
So let's hear. So what's early? 5, 4:30. Okay. Is that early enough? When my friends invite me to go out for drinks during the week, say, okay, what time? Like, well, how about we get together at 8 o'clock, 8:30? And like, no, I get up at 4:45 to either teach or work out. Like, so my night ends earlier. Let's see. Who has worked, so we're all city employees, correct? Who has worked with the city for 10 years? Nice. 15? All right. 16? 20? 21? 25? 30? Nice, we have a winner. I feel like an auctioneer. Very well. Who has worked with the city less than a year?
They didn't come.
How many months? Okay, so almost there. Okay. Well, it is 12:03. We'll get started in about 30 seconds or so, but I want to ground us first. We're all coming here from our desk. You probably have a million things on your mind. And if you're like me, I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do in the next hour. So I would really like to bring us to present and do a couple of real deep inhales. So inhale, so get comfortable. This will be your hour or so. Deep inhale through your nose, all the way in, and exhale through your mouth. You can close your eyes, you can keep them open. 2 more breaths like that. Deep inhale through your nose, and out through your mouth. And 1 more time. In through your nose, and out of your mouth. Very good. So hopefully we're feeling a little bit more centered and present. So I'd like to welcome everybody today. Thank you so much for coming. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of the Health Rewards program. A couple of words of introduction for myself. My name is Diana Vitinska. I am an integrative health and nutrition coach, also known as a wellness coach. What is a wellness coach? As a wellness coach, I work with individuals, I work with groups, I work with corporations, and my work is focused on helping people overcome obstacles to their health goals. When we think of health goals, what do we usually think? Let's hear it. Weight loss, eat right, exercise. Yep, anything else? So, and this is great. When we think about health and wellness, we usually think about eating right and exercising, which is great. But the truth is our wellness extends way beyond that. So in my work with clients, I will look at how all areas of a person's life are connected. That includes nutrition, that includes movement, it includes the emotional aspect of our well-being, and that consists of our personal development, our career, how fulfilled are we in what we do we like it, our personal relationships and our personal life. Because when that area is out of balance, that can affect our other areas. And then also part of wellness, a big part of wellness is spirituality. And I'm not talking about religion and going to church, which could be part of spirituality. Spirituality is just our emotional feeling of well-being in general, how happy we are happy with life in general. So all of those areas are part of our wellness and well-being. And what happens usually is when there is a disconnect in one of the areas, there's usually a disconnect in other areas. So if somebody is emotionally bogged down by stress at work, by family stuff, by relationships, that takes up a lot of mental capacity, and it makes it harder to focus on ourselves. It makes it harder to focus on working out and eating well and doing other things that are good for us. So I work with clients on that. So when I work with clients individually, we look at what is important to them. What is important to them in their wellness at this point. So we prioritize. We together come up with a plan to get to their health goals. And then during our weekly sessions, I coach, I support, I give education, and there is an accountability factor too. So I work with individuals, I work with groups as a health and wellness coach. And I also do public speaking engagements just like this one in city halls and businesses. A couple more words about my own background. I spent almost 20 years in the corporate world in sales and marketing, and recently several years in project management. So my corporate career is quite extensive. I still do some corporate projects. 6 years ago, I started teaching fitness. I got certified and started teaching fitness. I found the workouts that I loved, the workouts that worked. Then shortly after I started teaching, they asked me to coach nutrition programs at the studio. So I did that. Then I learned nutrition and exercise go together. And then I went through my own transformation, and that empowered me so much that I wanted to share this with others. And that's how I became an integrative health coach. My degree comes from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York. I'm also a Czech holistic lifestyle coach practitioner. And I'm a fitness instructor, and this is the health coaching and the fitness is really what I want to do when I grow up. So today, I'm really happy to share my knowledge with you. On the screen, you will see my little mascot. Her name is Daisy. She's a 9-year-old Yorkie. She weighs 3.8 pounds. And she's my little partner. She's my little inspiration. So today, we're going to talk about sleep. Sleep, the word that is mentioned often. It's mentioned everywhere. It's talked about a lot. We'll talk about how sleep affects our health in general. We'll talk about how sleep affects our hormones, our individual body clock, our metabolism, and then we will wrap up by giving you tools and giving you something that you can take away that is easy enough to incorporate into everyday life. This will be pretty formal, pretty informal. So feel free to jump in with any questions. It's okay to interrupt me because you know how sometimes thoughts come and go. If something comes to your mind, just raise your hand and fire up your question. And also, since this will be more of a workshop kind of setting instead of a lecture, let's start with this. Let's pair up. If you have 3 at a table, you can do work as 3. Let's take about 3 or 4 minutes on a little bit of sharing. So what I'd like you to do is, I have a good idea of why you're here. Number one reason is to get credits, right? I'm so good. So, and hopefully this topic was at least somewhat of an interest to most of us. So hopefully it's not just to get credits. So we already have a good idea of why we're here. So what I want you to share with your partner or partners at your table is one thing. What is your current challenge with sleep? Okay? The person with shorter hair goes first. So let's take about a minute or 2 per person.
Unless I drink too much water in the middle before I go to bed, then I'll wake up too. Like an hour. Every single night. Okay, I can sit in front of the TV and
And let's transition to the next person if you haven't yet.
the background noise. Because some people need it like in the background.
Some really good turnout.
I know. Thank you for making extra copies. All right, let's start wrapping it up. And bring it back. I love the energy already. This is great. Everybody's awake. This is good. Let's hear from a couple of people. What are some challenges in the room with sleep? Feel free to shout out.
My partner said that alcohol was his problem.
Not enough of it.
Oops. Well, we'll know not to partner up with you next time. Different schedules. Tell me more. Of your partner? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. And we'll talk about our internal clock today too, and how that affects sleep. That's a good one. Absolutely. One more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For no reason. Okay. Anybody else have that problem? Yeah, a lot. Okay. Well, sleep. Sleep used to be, a lot of people look at sleep like the badge of honor, like this, like they wear on their sleeve. I can get so little sleep and get so much done, and it's a sign of the lack of sleep is a sign of our toughness, it's a sign of our perseverance. We're tough, we're cool, we're super people, we can get little sleep and get so much done, right? Maybe. My own personal story, I never treated sleep I never thought of it as important. I grew up in a family where my role model was my mom. My parents are still married, but my mom was getting her doctorate degree when I was little, which consisted of really late nights because she was still working full time. Lots of coffee until wee hours in the morning to help her stay awake. And then she would get her 3-4 hours of sleep and drink a lot of coffee in the morning and go to work. To her credit, she did take naps every day. She would get home around 4 o'clock and would take about an hour and a half nap. So she did do that. But I grew up thinking, okay, you don't really need a lot of sleep. My parents are successful, they're productive, so that was my role model. You work a lot, you study a lot, you're a straight A student, and then you just use coffee, and when you're younger, it works, right? When I grew up, I would come into the office in my 20s, and people in the office knew about my sleep patterns, so it got to be a pattern. Hey, how much sleep did you get last night? And I would say, oh, about 3 or 4 hours, and they would shake their head like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So it only several years ago when I started health coaching and working with people on their health, when my own mindset started changing, and it takes a while sometimes for us to rewire our brain. And that is when I started looking very differently at sleep. There are lots of studies out there about sleep, and a lot of them have been focused on how it affects our mental alertness, how focused we are, how awake we are, our energy. And the truth is, sleep goes well beyond that. Sleep affects our internal clock, it affects our hormones, it affects our weight and metabolism. So if you want to be happier, live longer, and feel awesome, you are in the right place today. So first, let's take a look at what's happening today around us. We did our group share. This should not be a surprise to anybody. About 5% of people fall asleep when they're driving. Been there, done it in college, pulling all-nighters, studying for finals. 20 to 39-year-olds, about 37% of them don't get enough sleep. That number goes up when we get older. And about a third of adults get less than 7 hours of sleep a night. And the last one is really scary. In hospitals, about 100,000 deaths occur every year because the personnel are sleep deprived, they're not attentive, they work long hours on top of that, and then all kinds of mistakes happen. So this comes from the American Heart Association. So what is happening here? Half the world, or half the country at least, is going around sleep deprived. And if we took away the sugar, the caffeine, the energy drinks, energy pills, whatever we use to stay awake, can you imagine what would happen? It'd be like an apocalypse movie. People would be walking into poles. They'd be throwing things at each other. Except for maybe those that don't drink coffee and get their 8 hours of sleep. But those would be probably very far and few in between, right? Those kind of like left behind. So sleep used to be like that car that we park in the garage after work and forget about it next morning. Well, thankfully, not anymore. So let's take a quick look at, not a quick look, but let's take a look at the overall benefits of sleep to our health. The first one is memory. Our brain is surprisingly busy when we sleep. When we sleep, there is this process in our brain that's called consolidation. That is when our brain takes all the information we took in during the day, all the emails, all the conversations, all the information that comes in. But little sidebar, you know that the amount of information a regular office person takes in today is the equivalent of a lifetime of information for a person in mid-centuries. That's a lot of information. So during sleep, our body organizes and restructures that information. Has anybody seen the movie WALL-E with a little robot? Some of you, it's really cute. So think of our mind like as a little WALL-E comes in there, it looks at this pile of information and it goes to town. It organizes, it separates it, it puts it on a shelf where it belongs. So when we wake up in the morning, our brain is clear, organized, and ready to go. So if you're learning a new skill, or if you're learning new information, or just in general, you would perform a lot better after sleeping. And the other cool thing about consolidation is that all this organization in our brain releases creativity. And you can think, I'm not a creative person. Creativity goes beyond drawing pictures and creating artsy stuff, which is great too. But creativity could be as simple as taking a photo and pulling it up on your phone and applying different filters and going, oh, I can make this look better. Or if you're working and you have a problem to fix and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do here, then a creative part could be thinking of a different way to approach whatever you need to do. So that is also creativity. So that sleep definitely helps with that. The goal of almost every human being, well, I hope it doesn't die on us. So the goal of almost every human being is to live longer. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. So too much or too little sleep can affect how long we live. Thank you very much. They did a study, out of all the studies that are out there on sleep, they did a study of mature adults. And those who did not get enough sleep showed signs of premature aging. What does that mean? Signs of damaged DNA in those who didn't get enough sleep, and signs of premature cell death. That sounds awful. So if I don't get enough sleep, my cells will start dying off. Not good. Stress is also another factor that affects how long we live, and sleep helps bring our stress levels down. Now, we talked a couple of minutes ago about safety in the medical field, how many accidents happen in hospitals because people don't get enough sleep. Now, sleep affects our different areas of our brain. One of them is the area that is responsible for reasonable thinking. And reasonable thinking is what we use when we drive, right? So let's talk about sleeping and driving. Here's another statistic for you. 20% of accidents happen because the driver was tired or fell asleep at the wheel. So they look at the lack of sleep as just as bad or almost even worse as driving intoxicated. So bring it in closer to our level from all these statistics. If somebody goes through their work week 4 or 5 days in a row, not enough sleep, it is equivalent. It is supposed to be equivalent to driving intoxicated. All kinds of things happen because of that. Our body is a very smart, intelligent biocomputer. When we don't get enough sleep, it tries to make up for that sleep in little mini increments. Those could be from several seconds to up to a minute. It really depends. Think about it. Have you ever driven on the road, driven your car, and then all of a sudden you zone out and then you come back and you think, I can't remember how I got from that exit to that exit. Yes? Or just sitting at the computer and at work and thinking, oh my gosh, I can't remember what really happened the last 30 seconds. There's a possibility that your brain was doing those micro sleeps, trying to catch up on the sleep we didn't get during the night. So speaking of mood, if you think about last time you were cranky and irritable and wanted to throw something at your coworker and things like that, or your spouse or whatever, and think about, did that have anything to do with how much sleep you got that night? I know my own fuse is a lot shorter when I don't get a lot of sleep. I read client emails, I'm like, really? Are you really emailing me about that? No, I'm just kidding. I never do that. But we do tend to get, our sleep affects our mood, it affects our whole attitude on life, and it affects us a lot on the cognitive function level. Inflammation and immune system are also closely related to how much sleep we get. There are two types of inflammation. One is acute inflammation. So we get a cut, we put a Band-Aid on it, our body sends leukocytes, our body's white cells to attack the area, contain it, and heal it. Our wound heals, our cut heals, we're back to normal again. It's done. Chronic inflammation is different. Chronic inflammation is a disorder in our body that is there, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And chronic inflammation is the source of most chronic conditions. I just took a course on brain health, and they talked about how chronic inflammation can even spread from our body to our brain, and that can result in different cognitive disorders like ADHD and depression and dementia and Alzheimer's. So chronic inflammation is some serious stuff. We hear about it a lot, but we usually don't really associate it with how much weight it actually, how important it is actually to our health and our body. So sleep reduces inflammation, and sleep also enhances our immune function because it builds up those killer body cells in our body that can attack inflammation. And then finally, let's talk about sleep and weight. Did you know that sleeping more can actually help you lose weight? Maybe? Yes, yes. So sleep affects our body on the biochemical level. Biochemical level means hormones. So let's talk about the two that are responsible for hunger. Two hormones. There's our system works on the our body works on the system of checks and balances. There's a hormone that's responsible for how full we feel once we eat, and there's a hormone responsible for the feeling of hunger. So once our body depletes the energy, the hormone kicks in and it says, "Hey, you're hungry. You have to eat something." So the hungry hormone is ghrelin. The way I remember it is like, grr, I'm hungry. And the hormone that's responsible for our feeling of fullness is called leptin. So we don't need to remember the names. We just need to remember there are two hormones that are responsible for feeling how full or hungry we are. So what happens when we don't get enough sleep? Those two hormones get out of whack. So our levels of ghrelin go up, which means we are hungry more. Levels of leptin go down. So our feeling of being full goes down. Then what happens then? We get hungry. We want to eat. We want to eat all the time. I talk to clients who tell me, you know, when I get like that and I'm hungry and I'm cranky, I don't care what I eat. I don't care what I put into my body. I don't care at all. And the worst part is when we get hungry like that, we don't crave carrots and celery, right? What do we crave? Chips, chocolate, sugar, something that will bring us right back up quickly. So the more we eat, the more we gain weight. So this is the relationship of sleep and hormones. Another hormone is insulin. We've heard of insulin. It's a hormone that's made by the pancreas. Insulin has different several functions in our body, like regulating enzymes and some other things. But as we know, one of the main jobs of insulin is to regulate our blood sugar. In our workshop on sugar blues that's coming in June, we'll dive more into what that means in our body on a very nice to understand level. But insulin is a fat-storing hormone. The insulin's job is to take the extra sugar in our blood and put it in the places where it belongs, into our muscles, into our liver, into our fat. So when we have too much sugar in our body, from eating all the time because we're hungry because we didn't get enough sleep, there's extra insulin in our body. So lack of sleep causes insulin levels to go up. When there's extra insulin in our body, there is a potential for higher fat storage. Our body is a very intelligent biocomputer. Our heart never forgets to beat. Our lungs never forget to breathe. Sleep affects one of the most basic mechanisms of our body, which is called the internal clock. So this ties us back to that schedule and how hard it is when you wake up at odd times of the day or night. There are sensors in the back of our eyes that detect how much light is coming in into our body. And based on that, this was built centuries ago, before we had computers, before we had offices, when we were living in caves and hunting and gathering. Nothing has changed since then. So because of the amount of light that comes into our body sets up our internal clock. So that internal clock regulates our sleep cycles, one of the things. That's why people who get up really early in the morning have a hard time probably sleeping late during the weekend. Yes? It's because of our internal body clock. Well, besides our sleep cycles, our internal clock, which is also called the circadian rhythm, some of you might have heard that word. So our internal clock also regulates not just the sleep cycles, it regulates the temperature of our body, it regulates our hormones. There are all kinds of hormones in our body, and it regulates our metabolism. So think of our internal clock, if you're a computer person, or a technical person, think of it as that biggest processor that drives all the other systems in your system, that drives everything else that's loaded in your body. So what happens when there's a malfunction with that big processor, the main processor in your system? It's going to affect all the other programs that it runs, right? So any imbalances in our internal clock, when we don't get sleep, those imbalances in our internal clock can affect all the other systems, including our metabolism. What happens when our metabolism is not working well? We can't maintain our weight as well, or we gain weight. What happens when our internal systems are off balance? Inflammation, chronic inflammation. So this is serious stuff. Sometimes clients come to me and they say, look, I am doing everything by the book. I'm eating well. I am keeping my food journal. I am exercising. I am happy in my career. Everything else just lines up just right. We look at their food journal and everything just looks right. And then I ask them, how much do you sleep? And then we start digging into that. So when the scale doesn't move, sleep could be one of the reasons why. Next, think about this. So we talked about all of that. We talked about how sleep is important to our health. Hopefully, at least one of those points resonated with you. Hopefully, I convinced you at least a little bit that sleep is kind of important. Does it mean that everybody will go home tonight, make dinner, watch TV, and be in bed by 9:30? Maybe, maybe not. Changing habits is a process. And it's not what we do every once in a while in our life that shapes our life. It is what we do consistently. So changing habits takes a while. And sometimes we need accountability. Sometimes we need extra support. We could be a very strong person ourselves, but life still gets in the way. So this is one of the areas where I work a lot with my clients, is slowly, gradually changing habits to adjust their relationship with sleep. Next, I would like to take a couple of minutes. And actually, no, we'll save that for later. But I want to hear from the group. So what are some of the things that help you sleep better, go to bed on time, and just have better sleep in general? What works for you? Does anybody want to volunteer? Absolutely. That helps. Cold. Hard to sleep in the heat. What do we do without air conditioning? Anything else? Sleep machine? Mm-hmm. Aha. I'm sensing some little alcohol theme back there in the corner. Mm-hmm. Nice. Melatonin, yes, and we'll talk about that too. Mm-hmm. Like a fan or something like that. Yes, yes. So these are very good. So I'm going to share some strategies with everybody that I share with my clients. And out of everything I share, I challenge you, I encourage you to find one tool that you will take away today. But before we get into that, do we even know how much sleep we need? Adults, about 7 to 9 hours. Remember, too much or too little sleep can affect our well-being. So too much sleep is not good either. Teenagers, 8 to 10. Kids, really depends on how old they are. Then infants, 12 to 16 hours. Don't you wish you were an infant again? Get all that sleep? Well, maybe not. There's just too much exciting stuff going on to be sleeping that much. So take a note of that. It is also in your handouts, so you can take that as a reference with you. So tools to sleep better, to improve our relationship with sleep. We hear about the power of naps. My doggie, it's not the picture of my doggie, but my doggie is a professional sleeper. She sleeps a lot, and then she has all this energy. I wonder why. But our body keeps track of how much sleep we get. And most of us believe that, I am short on sleep during the week, but during the weekend I can catch up on sleep and I'll be good. And sure, we think that because we get up, sleep in on Saturday or Sunday, we wake up feeling energized, feeling good, we're ready to conquer the world, and you're thinking, I'm good, I'm caught up on sleep. Well, not so fast. Our body actually keeps track of the deficit. So it is possible to make up on your sleep if it happens within the same day. So if you can fit a nap or a couple in there, it doesn't have to be a huge 2-hour nap at once. But if you usually sleep 7 hours and you got in 5.5 for whatever reason, but if you can fit in that time during the day somehow, then it's possible to catch up on sleep. But if we build up the sleep deficit over several days, it is not possible to catch up on it on the weekend, no matter how good we might feel after a good night of sleep. So we talked about melatonin and natural supplements. The pharmaceutical industry spends billions of dollars a year on sleep drugs. And pharmaceutical companies have a lot of money. And they hire marketing companies that are really good at what they do and that advertise drugs, sleep drugs, as generally safe. And drugs are good when there is a reason and purpose for them. Drugs and doctors, and they're definitely need to be there. But can we really trust the sleep medicine as safe? Can we really say, okay, I feel 100% safe taking sleep drugs for sleep? Sleep drugs have side effects. Grogginess, mental sluggishness, kind of feeling out of it, dependencies. How often do we hear that somebody is dependent on sleep drugs? And with so much money spent on the sleep drugs every year, a lot of us depend on sleep drugs to sleep, which is a huge issue. So what happens when we take sleep drugs to sleep, they do help us sleep. We fall asleep, we wake up, we might or might not feel groggy or sluggish. We might feel okay. But the actual level of sleep with sleep medicine is very different from a natural level of sleep. With most of the time, we don't go into those deep and more shallow levels of sleep when we use sleep drugs. So our sleep is usually more shallow, which means our body doesn't get a chance to recover and restore. Well, what is a better alternative to sleep? Is anybody here allergic to lavender? Is anybody here allergic to essential oils in general? All right, I'm going to pass around a couple of them. So melatonin is one of the healthier alternatives to sleep. And melatonin is a hormone that is produced in the pineal gland that regulates our sleep cycles. So remember I talked about that internal clock, the amount of light that comes into the body, and that sets up our internal clock. So when it gets darker outside, levels of melatonin go up in our body, and that helps our body prepare for bed. That's why we're more tired in the winter, because it gets darker earlier. So the other good alternative, natural alternative to sleep is essential oils. Pure, unadulterated essential oils. Pure means it's 100% essential oil with no other additives. So I personally use both lavender and cedarwood. You're welcome to pass these around and smell. You don't have to, but it's just something nice to give you an idea of what it is. How to apply essential oils? The most common way, couple drops on the bottom of your feet. Sometimes when I talk about essential oils, people say, well, do I lather myself up in essential oils and walk around all oily for a couple of hours? These are different kinds of essential oils. A couple of drops is exactly what you need. The most simple way is to put them at the bottom of the feet and rub a couple of drops on your hands, cup them over your nose, and inhale. So I like to give my audiences a couple of more natural alternatives. Alcohol. That came up a couple of times today. Alcohol right before bed can help us sleep, but then it's a depressant right away, and then it's a stimulant after. So a lot of alcohol before bed can actually interfere with our sleep. Same with coffee. Coffee has a big life cycle in our body. It's very long. So when we have a cup of coffee before noon, that cup of coffee actually stays in our body until we go to bed to a certain degree. So it takes a while for our body to get the caffeine out of there. And then we talked about the cool bedroom. Exposure to light. Again, it all goes back to the internal clock, all goes back to our receptors. So when it's light in the room, our body thinks, hey, it's daytime, it's time to be awake, or when we sit in front of the computer. Dark means production of melatonin. Melatonin helps us sleep. And here's another study for you by the National Institute of Health Clinical Center. Those who slept in a cooler room, the cooler room was 66 degrees versus 71 degrees. So those who slept in the cooler room burned 6% more calories just by sleeping. Well, 6% is not a lot, but I'll take it. Then the other one is breathe. I just moved. I have a lot on my mind with the whole move and the logistics, and now I'm getting used to living alone again and having all this freedom and all my space and my little Yorkie and everything. So my brain last night was just go, 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 and I'm looking at the clock on my ceiling going, oh my gosh, it's 11 o'clock. I really need to be in bed. I really need to be sleeping. And I put my oils on. That didn't work. And I'm thinking, what else can I do? And then I thought, I can do what I share with my clients, which is breathing, which is exactly what we did in the beginning today. The deep inhale through your nose invokes the rest and restore responses in our body. So whenever there's too much on the mind, deep breathing several times brings us back to balance. And then a couple more for you. So eating at night is okay, as long as you keep it small. Going to bed super hungry and starving is not necessarily good, because what happens in the middle of the night? Our blood sugar levels drop. Our body wakes us up because it's in danger. It needs to keep the blood sugar levels up. So eating before bed is okay, as long as you keep it small. Good, healthy, nutritious snack. What is a good, healthy, nutritious snack? Talk to me afterwards. We don't have time to talk about it right now, but nutrition is a huge area, and there is so much information about that. And then the last two are my favorite. Giving yourself a hard stop at a certain time at night means if you get up, let's say at 5 a.m. in the morning, and you know you should be in bed sleeping by 10 p.m., right? And then you know it takes you about half an hour to get ready for bed. So the hard stop is 9:30 p.m. That means just like sitting in a meeting at work or being in a meeting at work. You go, my hard stop is 10 a.m. because I have to get to the next meeting or I have to be somewhere else. So give yourself a hard stop at night. Whatever you're doing, make the sleep a priority enough where you can stop or wrap up whatever you're doing and start your evening routine. It's not as easy as it sounds. Well, I'm in the middle of something. I don't want to drop it. Because if I get more things done tonight, then I don't have to do them tomorrow, and I'll be more productive tomorrow, and I can stay up later, and it doesn't work like that. You stop what you're doing, get your sleep, next day you'll be so much more productive and get so much more done. So any kind of shift starts in our mind. We make a priority to go pick up kids after school. We make a priority to make dinner for those of you who make dinner at home. Think about the other priorities in your life that are absolutely non-negotiable. They have to happen, right? So we make it a priority to make those things happen that are important to us. So it is about time when we start putting sleep on the top level of those priorities based on everything we talked about today. And one of the things that helps with that is first hiding gadgets or reducing your exposure to TVs and computers and any kind of a blue screen. Well, that's also easier said than done. Some of us have to work later. Some of us watch TV. So sometimes we just have to look at a computer screen or a TV screen. So what I find helpful is there's a free app called Flux, f.lux. And it's free. It's really easy to download. And what it starts doing is it starts turning the hue of your screen from bright blue, which is a regular computer screen, to more yellowish orangish. And you're thinking, well, I don't want to look at the orange screen. You don't even notice that the hue changes. It is so gradual. So when you tell the app, I go to bed at this time, I wake up at this time, and if you're still in the computer at a certain time of the night, it slowly starts turning the hue of your screen to something that's more friendly to our eyes. It also gives you reminders. You're waking up in 7 hours. You're waking up in 6.5 hours. You're waking up in 6 hours, and then you go, oh my gosh, I really need to get to bed. So it definitely helps. On the iPhones and other smartphones, it's nice that that feature is already built in when it already starts dimming your screen. So, and structuring your evening to spend the last hour away from the computer also helps. So doing whatever it is, doing dishes, getting the kids ready for bed, whatever it is in your evening routine that is away from the computer also helps. All right, so we talked, let's do this. I'm going to recap. We covered a lot of information today. And everybody is still awake, which is great. Fantastic. So to recap what we talked about, the tools, what can we do to improve our relationship with sleep? We talked about the power of naps. We talked about natural supplements, how alcohol and coffee affects our sleep, sleeping in the dark bedroom, prioritizing your evening to do a hard stop at a certain time before bed so you have enough time to get ready for bed and go to bed on time. And then also staying away from the gadgets. So what I'd like everybody to do next is turn to the same partners that you talked to in the beginning. And out of everything we talked about today, out of everything on the screen, you can refer to your notes too. Pick one thing that seems easy enough to incorporate into your daily life. That's number one. And number two is how you're going to incorporate that. Number one is what? Number two is how. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Hey, Mary Jo, so do we have till 1 or?
I think we put 12 to 12:45, so we can probably have to get back. I think
Okay.
if people want to leave or need to leave, I think I would just
Okay.
leave it at that. Actually,
Thank you. Let's go to the second person if we haven't yet. And then let's start wrapping it up.
Because some people are like, you should use this like do nap first.
And let's bring it back to the room. Well, I'd love to hear a group share, but I know we are, some of us will have to scoot in a couple of minutes. So a couple of things. Whatever you picked today, there must have been a reason why you picked it. So whatever it was must have been important to you for whatever reason. Must have been somehow important to you. So in coaching and in anything in life, it's one thing to have the information. We can go Google sleep and you can go read about what I just talked about, which is great. But then what are you going to do with that information? So my goal is, hopefully, when you leave this room, is you found that one something that is important enough for you that resonates with you, or your life, or your routine, or your health, your priorities. So find your why. You picked that one thing. Why did you pick it? So that why is the foundation of any kind of change. And then once you know your why, make it a priority. Because when there's a will, there is a way. And we make time and we make way for things to happen that are important to us. So how important is your why on a scale from 1 to 10? And hopefully it's up there close to a 10. Because if it's close to a 10, if it's not, then how do you make it a 10? Right? And once it's up there, then it will be important enough for us to make it happen. So I want to thank everybody today for coming, for listening, for taking everything in. As part of my workshops, I always offer participants an opportunity for a free coaching session. It usually lasts about 50 minutes. It's totally no obligation free coaching session to talk through some questions, talk through whatever else is going on. I'm happy to offer information, and if you're interested in that, the sign-up sheet is in the back. Also, feel free to grab my card. My email is Diana, D-I-A-N-N-A, @becentered.net. So feel free to email me if a question pops up later on. Feel free to email me, and we can talk by email too. So thank you everybody for coming. I hope to see you all next month in our next workshop. And I'll be around. I'm not in a rush to get out of here, so I'll be around for questions. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your week.